It is a pleasure to be here again this week. Very excited to share with you additional information around disability employment and inclusion. Again, my name is Beth Butler Fatal, and it is a pleasure to begin this presentation with you today. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So as a reminder, this presentation today comes to us as a part of the work we've done with the North Carolina Employment Collaborative. And this initiative was funded by the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities. And its primary purpose was really to create a opportunity to expand employment and inclusion to job seekers with disabilities, as outlined in our North Carolina State Unified Plan under the Workforce Innovations and Opportunities Act. And we are so excited to again launch the NCEC toolkit that we reviewed with you last week during our first session, as well as the video. All of that is available on our website at di-nc.org. I want to also take this opportunity to thank you all for responding to the survey that was sent out and will be sent out again following today's session. We take that feedback very seriously and understand from some of our participants that there were some issues with a couple of the links on the toolkit. So we have addressed that, and all should be working well. So again, we value your feedback and appreciate your time in filling out those surveys. At the end of today's session, again, you can expect another survey, and we welcome those comments. And if you'll go to the next slide. When we think about the work of the Employment Collaborative as well, it's important to remind you of the diversity that existed within the council that created this initiative. You'll see the various state departments listed, including Department of Commerce, Department of Health and Human Services, even the community college system, all as a demonstration of the collaborative efforts behind this work. I think it's important to also recognize the role that both business leaders and stakeholders with disabilities played in the work and the training that you're seeing today. Next slide. Well, good morning and welcome to our discussion. We are excited to have with us special guests today that are going to share some real practical experience with you based on their roles with the workforce development boards and the systems and agencies that they represent. I am Beth Butler Fatal, Executive Director of Disability in North Carolina, and I am so excited to introduce to you our guests for today's discussion. Our focus today will be on the collaboration and partnerships, the importance of those partnerships to our NC Works Career Centers. And joining me again today is Jennifer Turner-Taylor. Jennifer is a business relations representative. She works with the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation in the Burlington Unit office. Welcome, Jennifer. And we have Christy Brinson, who is a program specialist for business engagement, and she is located in Raleigh. And then we have Tansy Sierra, and Tansy is a business services representative with the Regional Partnership Workforce Development Board in Randleman, North Carolina. And Tansy, just as a side note, also has served on our North Carolina Employment Collaborative Council since the beginning of this North Carolina Employment Collaborative Initiative. So Tansy, thank you for your continued partnership and service. And then finally, Andrew Davila. And Andrew is a senior business engagement manager and works with the Charlotte Works Workforce Development Board. And he is right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I sit. So good to see you, Andrew. Thank you for being here. And so as we think about this topic of partners in collaboration, I want to open it up and really hear from you all on, the importance of that. But I think it starts with understanding what your role and responsibility is in the Career Center. So, Andrew, let's start with you. Can you describe for us some of your roles and responsibilities within the Career Center?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Andrew Davila, and I get to serve as the Senior Business Engagement Manager for Charlotte Works, which is the Workforce Development Board for Mecklenburg County. My primary role is focused on building strategic partnerships with various stakeholders. Could be economic development, educational institutions, community-based organizations, but also employers. The purpose is to design and implement business solutions that meet employers' needs. Areas of focus is connecting employers to a skilled talent pool and upskilling employers' existing workforce. So building relationships and partnerships is crucial for this role.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. And Christy, what about you?
Good morning. My name is Christy Brinson again. I'm the program specialist for business engagement with vocational rehabilitation here in the state of North Carolina. And we're always partnering with NC Works to help our clients with disabilities to be able to achieve their employment goals. And we help individuals with disabilities kind of chart their path to a career, with a future in North Carolina. Our agency basically helps with providing counseling and training and job placement assistance. And we also work with assistive technology. And there are many other services, just depends on, what the job seeker with a disability needs to meet their goals for competitive integrated employment. But by partnering with NC Works, it just opens the door for so many partnerships. I'll share a little bit more details with you in just a moment. But I know we have 32 offices that serve all the 100 counties and a talented team of business relations representatives that work closely with the job seekers to become job ready, but they also work closely partnering with their local NC Works career centers. And those relationships and partnerships really help our clients to be able to match quality skilled candidates with the employment opportunities that the employers are offering and hosting. And for our agency, we're always focusing on what an individual can do and of course not what they can't do. We do focus on their talents and passion and most importantly their ability. If someone's never had a job, we work closely with NC Works to kind of help us identify some opportunities that could help them gain some, immediate work experience just to get their foot in the door, with it being their first job. But we also know that there are other individuals that may be struggling from losing a job and just need some extra support. And I know that the partners and agencies working within each of the local NC Works provide that extra support to our clients. So we're really excited about that. We know employers are looking for individuals that are not only skilled, but dependable and especially want to work, because I know that's a challenge today.
Yeah. So Jennifer, let's hear from you. So in your role with VR, what are some of your roles and responsibilities that help with connecting job seekers with employment?
Absolutely. So my role, my actual title is a business relations representative for vocational rehabilitation. I serve the Burlington unit office in Alamance County. And my role is to broker relationships between local employers and agencies and our VR job seekers. So I provide services like employability workshops for our adults with disabilities and for our high school students, which we call transition youth, that may be in high school or in college. I also facilitate employment support groups, which we call Job Club. And those groups are there just to support our job seekers because you know what, it is very difficult to look for jobs and be unemployed. And we find that better success or greater success comes when you're doing that as a group. So I facilitate those. And I also facilitate arranging facility tours with local employers, also educating our career counselors about the local labor market, and also coordinating on-the-job training and internships for our individuals with disabilities.
Fantastic. Great. And we'll talk more in detail about some of that for sure. Tansy, what about you in terms of your role in supporting job seekers with disabilities?
You know, whenever I came on board with the Employment Collaborative Coalition or Council, I was an operations manager at the Workforce Board. So what I was in charge of was making sure our career centers had all the necessary tools and technology that they needed to help those that came into the NC Works Career Centers that had disabilities. And whenever I first started, we were very lacking. So it was to order. And I ordered quite a few things. I ordered cap telephones for the career centers. We ordered mobile desks that could be accessed by a wheelchair or a walker because they could raise or lower to meet the needs of those individuals that were using them. So that was my number one priority. That was my number one role whenever I started on this journey. Now that I have evolved into a business service rep, I see firsthand some of the struggles that the career advisors have had, because I've been talking with them and I learned, you know, what are some of your biggest obstacles? What are some of the biggest barriers that you're facing? And the same thing that I've told you over the last couple of years has rang true in every career center. You know, we need to make the public aware that we can't see through them. We need them to speak up and not be afraid to speak up. So we have tried to make our career centers as inviting as possible to everyone who enters.
And Tansy, you raise a really good point, because we've spent a lot of time in these trainings talking about the architectural barriers, right? And the importance of focusing on creating that welcoming environment, right? So, you know, we've released the video and some of those things, again, to help centers build that culture and that environment that makes me as a person with a disability feel welcome when I walk in the door, right? So you've talked a lot about some of those architectural barriers. And did you have partners that you reached out to as you started to explore, you know, the availability? You mentioned large print software on a computer. So you know, are there partners that you collaborated with in order to get those things implemented in your center?
Not really. Well, no, I can't say that. Now, NC Commerce is a huge partner. I mean, they're our bosses as well, and Division of Workforce Solutions. We're all a team. It doesn't really, when you talk about collaboration and partnership, I see them as team members because they are an extension of us. Anyone who is trying to help job seekers fulfill their career goals is a part of the team.
Well, and I think the model and I think the whole model that has been created in these career centers across our state lends itself, right, to that seamless approach to services, right? So Andrew, if I think about, you know, Charlotte Works and kind of the work that goes on in a career center, what are some examples of some collaboration and the partnerships that you could leverage, as you find success in finding job seekers employment, right, including individuals with disabilities?
Right. Partnerships, like I said, is critical to foster that inclusive employment opportunities. And then with the Charlotte Works Workforce Development Board, we oversee some of the operations at our career center. So we work very closely with our business solutions consultants. We work very closely with the talent development staff so that we make sure that individuals with disabilities are able to have access to employment opportunities that have been developed either through the Workforce Board or through the NC Works Career Centers. Similarly, with the Veterans Department, providing them also these job opportunities. So some of our closest partners would include Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, close partnerships with Tandra Reeder and Gary Aslop is one of the business service representatives that we have included into what is called our Talent Source Network. Part of the community organizations that provide employment opportunities to all of our Charlotte residents, but exclusively for today's conversation, those with disabilities.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. And Jennifer, I know that part of your role is to reach out and build those partnerships with employers. So, talk to me about kind of how that translates right into a career center environment. Are you directly connected to a career center? Do you have certain hours that you are in a career center? Or talk to me about that collaboration.
Yes. Thank you, Beth. So before COVID, things definitely looked a lot different than they do now. But we are actually still very connected to our career center. Whenever they're having job fairs, they'll still reach out to us. They had 2 open air job fairs that were just last year. And so they sent that information over to us and I was able to share that with VR job seekers. But before the pandemic, I would actually go over to the NC Work Center every single week. And it was a great opportunity to really engage with the individuals that came into the career centers. The office served as a referral partners, of course. So sometimes we would get referrals from them and we would also send them referrals as well. If we knew that there were employers that were going to have hiring events, we would send those referrals over to make good use of those opportunities that came up. But I also developed some really great relationships that I still keep in touch with to this day, even though we're still trying to readjust to this new normal a little bit. And that was with the business service representatives. So much of our roles are very, very similar. We just, they may serve more of the general population, whereas our role is more specific. So I found myself having many conversations about just kind of educating them a little bit about how they also can share with employers about how to take advantage of the VR services and hiring people from with different abilities, right? And some of the benefits that come with that. So that was very eye-opening. And in getting to know career staff that were at the career centers, I also learned that many of them still felt a little uncomfortable about how to identify an appropriate referral for VR or different ways that they could be supported. So we would have disability sensitivity trainings that we provided to staff that was very, very helpful for them. And then when I love speaking with the business representatives a lot because it also gave me insight into the labor market that maybe I wasn't aware of. So it gave me a different perspective that I was able to go back and actually share with our career counselors who are actually in place to, help these individuals discover which types of career paths they want to choose and put them into employment plans. So it really became a very invaluable resource that I was able to kind of tap into while I was there. And I also just really enjoyed getting to know the clients that came in, because some of them didn't realize that VR existed. Some didn't realize that they might have a disability that would qualify them for services. And some of them did not know anything about the advocacy piece. Basically, how do I talk to an employer about some of the things that might be limiting me? And so that was very helpful when they may be preparing for an hiring event that's going to happen, in the next couple hours or the next day or two, and they're being interviewed on the spot. And so those things are really important that they have. So, whether they were fully eligible for VR services or not, I think that it's nice to be able to catch them then while they're, actively looking for work, and being able to equip them with the things that they need to be successful, especially if there's a possibility for employment within the next 48 hours. So those are some ways that I have worked with NCWorks, and have really, I have really enjoyed it, and has been very, very beneficial to our agency, but also I think to the site that we work closely with in Burlington.
Fantastic. All good stuff. And I, you raise a really good point, and I think we've spent some time on this as well, is that as we work through this topic and doing some training focused on this work, it's important to go back to your career centers and ask the question, right? What does our referral process look like with VR, for example, right? Vocational rehabilitation. Who do we have a point of contact? And if not, then get to know that person, right? Meet your Jennifer, right? And begin to build that relationship, understanding, and Jennifer, you said it as well, not everybody is going to qualify for VR services. Right. And so what we're really focused on as well is what happens to those individuals that may not qualify. Right. And what I hear you saying is that, we can still partner together to equip the staff at the career centers with what they need to accommodate and create access to training opportunities. And like you said, maybe there's an employment opportunity available within the next 48 hours. You're on an interview and, off you go. So I really want to encourage those on today's call to take advantage of that and learn more about their VR contacts for sure. So fantastic. Christy, I want to give you a chance. Do you have anything else to add to this conversation? I know you're focused on business engagement, right? Which I would imagine is connecting with employers out there. And so tell us your thoughts on this.
Jennifer did a great job explaining exactly what our business engagement team does, and connecting and partnering with the NCWorks Career Centers it's just a huge partnership. It's like a big family, in my opinion, that the client that we serve is getting that extra support from a lot of individuals. I know that we've had many of our offices that have worked closely with clients that may have been in the age group of 55 and older. And I know that there were programs and partners within NCWorks that were able to help those individuals. Additionally, through, I think, the Experienced Workforce Initiative, we've also been able to work closely with facilitating employment for clients that had a criminal background by working with the offender specialist with NCWorks. And they also may have helped them look for employment, share some job fairs or some postings, but they also provided federal bonding if it was needed to attain employment. But I know we've had a great support with a variety of different programs and all through NCWorks to help our clients. So having that partnership locally between the business relations rep and that local NCWorks is a win-win for everybody. So I definitely recommend that if the local office does not know their Jennifer in their area, we will connect you with the Jennifer in your area to really see the magnitude of what the partnership can do.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think about when we think about the employer conversations that are taking place, and Jennifer, you raised a really good point earlier. There's a lot of data available through your NCRS Career Center around employment, right? The industries that are hiring, and kind of the economic forecast, if you will, of what's to be expected. So as you look for opportunities, it's a great resource in your career centers to capture that data and help drive qualified individuals to those jobs as well. When we think about employers, though, and Drew, I'm going to come back to you. Is what we know from this work that there are some attitudinal barriers that exist, right? How do we address that, right? As we have conversations with these employers that are coming to the career centers, how do you open up that conversation around? And everybody's looking for diverse talent, but are they considering the talents of individuals with disabilities?
Right now, in the current market that they're experiencing, they're opening their minds a little bit more to this untapped talent pool. Individuals with disabilities can be seen by employers as needing additional help that they just don't know how to accommodate for. And so opening up the conversations, starting with data. We all know that labor market is tight for labor. Employers are looking for talent, and they're looking at every way they can, second chance populations, but also those with disabilities. So starting those conversations with that, there is a need. Being able to have that door open allows us to talk through what some of those challenges they feel they're experiencing, and try to alleviate some of those negative connotations.
That's great. So Jennifer, I want to get back to you and ask you too to comment on that. I mean, surely in your training, you are probably often faced with kind of some of those employers that are a little bit cautious if they haven't hired a person or a job seeker in the past. And so those attitudinal barriers are real. And what would you say to employers or honestly on this call, really, career center staff that are hesitant to kind of raise this as a viable talent pool for employers they're working with?
Well, I mean, there is a huge need. It's a huge desire to work. And they are some of the most loyal and consistent and reliable group of workers that I don't know if I can compare it to anyone else because I've always worked with individuals with disabilities. I'm going 17 years strong. So, but there's just and because of so many difficulties that they face in terms of attitudinal issues and barriers, when they do get that job, they give it their all. So I think to me, that's one of my selling points, because a lot of what I see, at least in Alamance County, are employers concerned with the fact that, they just have a lack of individuals with that soft skills training, right? And they're losing a lot of people. And so our population can definitely help fill that gap.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Again, I want to thank you all so much for joining us. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over, and we're going to open it up for some live Q&A. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And so, again, here's your chance. Have any questions based on what you've heard today so far?
Okay, thank you, Beth. I went ahead and put into our chat box, what are some of your collaborative success stories that you'd like to share? Please use the chat box and go ahead and drop those in. And while we're waiting, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Jonathan, if I may, one of the success stories that I can think of off the top is a collaboration with Reynolds. It's a local manufacturing company here in the Charlotte area. They have a new inclusion initiative, and they're utilizing some of our programming to help with this initiative, to help kick it off. One of which is our Incumbent Worker Training Program, or as we call it here, is our Upscale Charlotte program. This is a great opportunity for them to send 40 of their employees to training. 30 of the employees are managers. They're going to be sent to training on how to learn 10 strategies and building an inclusive environment on the work floor. They're going to be learning key strategies that provide a natural support and foster that disability inclusive environment. And then, of course, we have about 10 individuals with disabilities that are going to be trained on building a more solid career-related social skills, one of which is learning how to ask for assistance if it's needed. They've seen through the partnership with James Emmett Company, which is a part of this collaboration. They work specifically with individuals with disabilities and have identified this as one of the most problematic areas. And so we're trying to assist them in providing some additional training so that they can, have this as a solution to some of their staffing problems. And then moving into the future, we're looking at collaborating on some on-the-job training contracts with individuals with disabilities so that they are properly trained and have that career development and career path developed with some actual training plan that provides that solid training.
Excellent. Excellent. Just to go ahead to share as far as with our panelists today, one of the successes that was shared is that Winston-Salem VR partnered with NC Works and with Ashley Furniture in hiring and also identifying as far as those persons or individuals that may qualify for services and need assistance with training, such as truck driving. Another person writes, my experience with disabilities, as they have worded this here, is the many so-called disabilities actually become tremendous advantages and successes on the job. That's so true. They also added into this, it's also about proper job match. And when this happens, it works for the employer and the employee. I did have one question that did come up. Can you elaborate on which conditions are really advantageous?
And so I'm not sure I quite understand the question. When you say which conditions are advantageous, are we talking about specific disabilities?
Liz, if you could elaborate on that. And while we wait for her response, our job coaches, here we go. My experience with disabilities is that many of the so-called disabilities actually become tremendous advantages and success on the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. And I think what's important to communicate to employers is that every disability is unique, right? So we often say that it's not a cookie cutter approach, right? One size does not fit all when it comes to an accommodation. But again, it is identifying, as you said, Jennifer, when you match the skills and the talents of the individual, and I think that's probably what really adds value to the employers, not unlike any other conversation that's happening with Career Center staff. You're identifying those employers, you're building those relationships, and you're saying, okay, where are your pain points? right? What do you need in terms of skills? And so it is no different than that. And then going back to your Jennifer, right? And saying, okay, here's the skills that we need for a particular position. We have a high turnover in this role, or we're really looking for specific skills in this particular area. And then going out and partnering with your business relations rep and Jennifer, as you said, going to the counselors and saying, guys, this is an opportunity. If we can skill up individuals in this particular skill set, then we've got some opportunities. So again, to me, it's not anything unlike what you do for job seekers without disabilities, right?
Yeah, I think the other benefit that I have seen from collaborating with our local career center is that when I am going out and having these conversations with businesses and we are doing a needs assessment and we discover that when I go back to the office, I may discover that maybe I don't have anyone to fill those vacancies. And that's okay, because then, what I can do is I'll go back to the employer and say, hey, can I help? Can I connect you with our career center? Can I help you open a requisition there to use them as a resource to help you fill these vacancies? So I've also used them as a way of maintaining a healthy relationship with the employer by not over-promising and ensuring that I'm sending them a good fit. And when I can't find the right fit for them, redirecting them to an agency that might be able to get them more candidates that they need. So that has been one way that I've helped maintain some of my relationships is by actually being very open and transparent about, do we have candidates right now that can actually help fill those needs? And if not, how can I help connect you with other resources so that ultimately we're benefiting everyone in our community that's looking for employment?
Beth, this is Pat, and I would like to respond to the question about the talents and capabilities. I think sometimes we're so focused on the disability that we forget to ask the question, where would this particular disability be viewed as a strength? In other words, if somebody is on the autism spectrum and they have evidence of neurodiversity, they might be a person with greater attention to detail, and they may be ideally suited to jobs that require that attention to detail. Conversely, a person who's rather social, and we look at them and we say, that could be a liability in certain jobs, but it can be a tremendous asset in customer service and other jobs where being social and engaging is the core job description.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And Pat Kuehl has a tremendous background in job coaching as well. And so that's what you're hearing. That's why she was so successful at what she did, is because exactly at that point is that you have to think differently, right? And think outside the box and pull out those talents and turn those talents into assets for the employer. And that's a really, really good point.
Beth, would you like to move on to the next question?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yes.
So in the chat box, we're asking, what are some of the systemic barriers to collaboration in your opinion?
Okay, well, I'll take a stab at it.
Go for it.
This is Jennifer Turner Taylor in Alamance County. I think there are several opportunities available in manufacturing and healthcare, and even hospitality in our area, especially the Piedmont area. And although there are several openings, the prolonged standing associated with some of those positions excludes more experienced workers. So they, maybe they have acquired disabilities in their lower bodies, in their feet and in their legs and in their backs. And so they can no longer work in those positions. I think that is a barrier for some of our workers, a lot of workers, not just individuals that we're serving, but ones that we aren't serving. And I think that employers may not be aware fully of the long-term effects that come with having individuals stand for long periods of time, and what effects that has on their business, but also their workers as well. I think that it can lead to, issues with, lower back pain, cardiovascular problems, things like that. So I would like to kind of see more employers kind of be more open to opportunities where they might be able to offer accommodations in some of those positions where they would allow people to sit or stand as a way to help retain workers, but also help keep healthy workers that are able to continue to work for their companies for years and years and years. The longer a longer person stays, the lower the costs associated with trying to find someone new, recruit someone new, and even having to train those new people as well. So we deal with a lot of people that have a lot of experience working in those fields, but over the years with the prolonged standing, it really affects their abilities to be able to continue to do those jobs. And I think I would love to continue to offer more awareness to employers about how can we accommodate these workers, and what could that actually mean for them on the short term, but also long term as well.
And that's a great point. Jennifer nailed it for sure. Beth, I'm just going to chime in if I can. I think one of the barriers that that I know I'm particularly interested in changing is basically all of us, those with and without diagnosed disabilities, could definitely benefit from reducing the stigma around issues with mental health. 1 in 4 adults experience mental illness each year, and I think the latest data I had seen, there's around 18% of the adult population has anxiety disorder. We're all susceptible to issues with mental health, and I believe ignoring it does more harm than it does good. So the conversations around mental health, I know they can be difficult, but they are important to improving employee morale and creating a better workplace. So I think leaders at all levels need to put mental health on the table, talk about it, invite others to talk about it, and really work actively to develop resources and plans for their employees. Mental health is a challenge, but it's not a weakness. And I think when we acknowledge our mental health, we get to know ourselves better. We're more authentic people, employees, and actually leaders. I know mental health is really, mental wellness has grown to be more of a hot topic, I think, during the pandemic. When an individual's been struggling with their mental health and they know that a specific employer is open to those conversations and providing some accommodations as well as understanding and supporting what their needs are, I think that an employer will find a more loyal, empowered employee because they do see that their employer really cares. I know the ones I work with always hear me talk about my mom, and that's why I bring that up. She did suffer from anxiety and panic disorder, and she worked for an employer that actually created a work environment where there was open communication. She was able to receive an accommodation, and from that they got a dedicated employee who was very loyal. And I think it's a win-win basically for everybody.
Yeah. And Christy, that's a great point, because I know that if I look back in 2021, that was probably the most asked for training that we did with employers. We had employers coming to us saying, help, right? Help. How do we, even in a virtual environment, how do we better care for our employees? Now everybody's at home. It can be more isolating than ever. How do we engage them? How do we make sure that our employees are okay? And so, yeah, that was a huge topic. I think that employers are now more than ever aware of the services that they provide through their employee assistance programs, right? Taking all of that into account of it is, it is no longer just about the physical well-being of your employees, but it is about the mental health well-being of your employees as well. So it is a holistic approach to wellness, which I think we're seeing a lot of. So yeah, great call out.
Beth, I did want to share a quick collaboration story with you. I know as a business relations rep, a few years ago, I was able to partner really wonderfully with the Wayne County location, and our agency hosted a job fair specifically for our clients that were justice involved. And it was a 2-day event, and NC Works worked extremely hard on helping me connect with employers that could participate in the job fair. They also came to our employment marketing skills classes and shared tips and information for the clients that did have a criminal background, how to be successful. Had other individuals come to share their success stories. And so the job fair, the way it was hosted, those clients were able to feel extremely comfortable participating because they knew every employer that was there knew they had a criminal record, so they didn't have to feel, ashamed or feel bad about any of it. And I think we had, if I remember correctly, about 17 of our clients attend. I think we had 8 employers, and 6 of those clients did attain jobs that day. And so that was huge. That was awesome. Everybody came together, and so I had to give a big shout out to that partnership there, and especially Derek Wootson. He was a huge part of helping me put that event on in Wayne County. So
Thanks, Christy. And that is a great example of that conversation around intersectionality, right? Too, that so many of the NC Works training centers, they're working with underserved, underrepresented populations, right? And so we can all work together because we're all shooting for the same goal, right? And that is economic self-sufficiency, right? Through employment. We are healthier as a state. We're healthier in our communities when everybody has an opportunity to work, right? So thank you, Christy, for that.
Yeah, I omitted a very key collaboration whenever we did our panel discussion, and that is one of our contractors actually did a collaboration, or is in the process of, has been for a couple of years now, what they call pre-employment transition services, where they partner with the city and the county schools and help the individuals with disabilities there learn key skills that they will need to be in the workforce when they reach adulthood. And I think that is an awesome one. They partner with the school systems, with VR, and with the DHHS Division of the Blind to help all these children that are coming up in the high schools. So I think that's a real key collaboration, and something that is working well and helping these youngsters to learn new skills, and the skills that will get them into good paying jobs.
Yes, absolutely. The transition of our youth into out of school and education into employment is a key part of this conversation, and it does certainly requires collaboration and good partners. So thanks, Tansy. So Jonathan, are there other questions? I know this has been incredibly rich in terms of conversation this morning. I'm really excited about this. I know we're coming up on time. Are there other questions that you want to ask at this point?
Well, we do have another. If you want to go ahead and move on to the next question, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yes, that'd be great.
So, What are some examples of successful employment outcomes in your area as a result of collaborative partnerships? Please go ahead and put your comments into the chat box. And if anybody on our panel would like to go ahead and weigh in on maybe some of the successes that you've experienced.
I think overall, I mean, I've just found that placement for certain individuals, especially with certain skill sets, are a lot quicker going through our local career center. We've been able to place several individuals that have experience in manufacturing, in hospitality and also nursing fields pretty quickly utilizing our career center.
Thanks, Jennifer. One of the things I wanted to point out as well is because I think a lot of folks are not aware of the role that you all play in employee retention, right? So as employers or as job seekers come to their career centers and open up conversations with their job development advisors, right? They may disclose that, because of a condition, or maybe I struggle with anxiety or depression. I know this was a concern, or that this may have led to my unemployment, right? But they haven't received services up to this point. What about the employer that comes to the career center and says, it may be that there's an employee that's struggling, right? And they know that there's something that could be done or may need to be done in terms of supports and services. Can VR help, right, with retaining the employment of a person, a job seeker, or I say a job seeker, an employee with a disability? And how can that help to enhance, right, the retention of employment like you've talked about?
Beth, I'm sure Jennifer can chime in on this as well, but like I mentioned, we have a business engagement team statewide of business relations representatives, and part of their role is to work with the employers when those questions come up. We do want to be a resource for those employers, and if we don't have the answers, we do have a team that can help us find the answers. Just yesterday, one of our team members was working closely with an employer trying to determine an accommodation that would be helpful to that individual, and most of the time it's just a matter of asking that individual what do they feel is helpful for them. And but we have our team that works closely again with those employers to have those intimate conversations and to figure out what the needs are and what the employee as well as the employer are in agreement with. And then in addition, also try to provide some free disability awareness training to help, those teams to be able to better understand the needs of others and to work collaboratively together and really see the value that an individual with a disability brings to the workplace. Jennifer, do you want to add any on to that?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. We also have an on-site vocational evaluator that is, in our office here in North Carolina, probably each one of the offices, honestly. And those vocational evaluators work really closely with the business relations representative. I know that we do in our office anyway. And we just had a case where we had the employer call us, and I handled other issues related to the business relationship, but she actually went in and did like a site evaluation to see how she was doing in certain tasks. They actually looked at her performance evaluation, determined what the problem areas were, and then she did an observation and came up with some proposals of how what accommodations could be put in place to help her do better on the job, and also possibly some additional trainings that VR could support with. So that's one of the ways that we have helped, especially even recently, where employers will contact us and they're really trying to figure out how to work with this person to help them keep their employment. And so we have those, we have the business relations rep, but we also have the vocational evaluator that can also come in and really do some very, very thorough evaluations to discover what those accommodations might need to be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Beth, if I may cut in, since we're running a little bit long on time, if I could go ahead and enter in the last question.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Thanks.
My pleasure. So what are some of the ways you and your partners have collaborated to overcome barriers like transportation, family support, and financial barriers? We can ask our audience to go ahead and drop your comments into the meeting chat box. And if anybody on the panelists would like to share some of their success stories.
Well, we've often had people that maybe have received employment through a job fair that our local career center has had, and maybe they needed transportation to get to and from the interview, or needed transportation temporarily to get to and from work until more consistent transportation was put into place. So we do that quite frequently. Also, if there's a need for additional training or education and training, I know that NC Works also provides that, but we can provide supports around that as well. Like if they need additional training or certifications, things like that, we can offer that type of support. So also, if they need interviewing attire, we can help them with interviewing attire if they meet for certain financial eligibility requirements of the agency. So there's many different ways that we can support workers that may have some of those some resource limitations or whatever. So it's just a matter of asking and being connected with your local VR office, especially if you know that they're with VR. We could definitely look into seeing whatever we can do to help make sure that person has what they need to be successful.
Great comment. Great comment.
Jonathan, if I may, from the workforce board perspective, knowing what our community partners' resources are important for us as we are discussing business needs with local employers. We convene our local partners, which include vocational rehabilitation. And as we're talking about their needs, which could be talent, letting them know that there are career advisors attached to some of these individuals that can provide additional resources such as transportation or family support. Working very closely with our Talent Source Network representative, Gary Aslip. He is a critical partner from the Voc Rehab Center, and with our NC Works Career Center as well, their career advisors are attached to some of those clients that we're providing these job opportunities to. So as we work together, we're able to help overcome some of these challenges.
Yeah, I think that's, I think about the opportunities because we talk about that, right? There's kind of two paths to somewhat some similar services is what I hear, right? So it is important, and gosh, you guys know this, but an employer needs somebody, they need them now, right? If the job is available, they need him right. So figuring out within the context of these partnerships, the quickest way to serve that job seeker, right, with a disability is going to be key, because job opportunities come, but employers need people when they need people. And so, Andrew, you raise a really good point. If there are transportation dollars, or if there are systems in place to help with that transportation, that might be more expeditious for that candidate. understanding that as a NC Works Career Center staff person, right? Having these resources in front of you so you can pick and choose and say, "Yeah, I know these opportunities for jobs are going to be down the road. I've got some opportunity to plan for this. Let me pull in various partners to work on that talent pool and developing that pool of candidates." But boy, if it's a job that, that there's a need immediately, to have an option of seeking those resources through your career center may be an incredible opportunity for someone with a disability.
I did have one question that did come up before we wrap up. And the question is the only transportation option for people who are blind public transportation?
Is that a question?
That is a question.
Okay, just public transportation. And are you saying through services that are offered through VR? Is that what you're asking, or because
it sounds to me like, and I apologize for interrupting, it just sounds to me like that they're basically wanting to find out, is the only transportation option for people who are blind is public transportation? Are there options out in communities?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do know, and I'm not sure if it's for all participants. I do know that our Randolph County Career Center in Ashboro does have a van that they help with transportation. I think it's mostly for youth. I'm not exactly sure on that. I'd have to ask one of my career advisors, but I do know that they do have a van, and it's used carrying participants either to jobs or work experiences or OJTs or school. I'm not exactly sure the specifics on that, but I do know that they do offer transportation.
So this is Pat again, and don't overlook the option of Uber or Lyft. And sometimes if you need continuous transportation on a regular schedule, you can get with that Uber or Lyft driver and offer up a contract with them to maybe cut the cost and use them as a driver, on a more continuous basis. There are ways to do that.
And we're going to put a disclaimer. We're going to put a disclaimer out there in the event that anyone here is an Uber representative or whatever. This is the attorney coming out in me. That said, Pat is absolutely right. And I don't know if there are reimbursement services available through any of the agencies that might be out there. But Uber and Lyft are very viable options for individuals with low vision and blindness. They've been a lifesaver for me. I know I've used them, and Pat's right. As you become more, you get regular drivers, and some of them are very interested in being of service. And I will say this, Uber has also paid attention to the needs in our community around this population of individuals with disabilities. And so they're doing a lot of training internally as well around service animals and, wheelchair transitioning individuals who need supports as they use this service. So absolutely don't overlook that. Is there an expense associated with it? Yes. But again, I think this is where you also can leverage some partnerships. Is there a reimbursement option? And finally, employers know that this is an issue. It's a barrier for underserved populations across the board. And so they're getting more and more innovative in terms of how to solve for the transportation barrier, I think, in a lot of our communities.
Yes, Beth, I've had success with coworkers as, going in the same direction. So they arrange to help, offset the cost of gas. I've also had success working with the faith community with various different church groups. Again, there are liabilities associated with this, and I'm not a lawyer, Beth is, so I'm not going to go down that road, but sometimes networking just in your community with like-minded folk can create opportunities that are solid to solve for transportation.
And Beth, in some of our unit offices, we do have vendors also that are transportation vendors that we work closely with to help provide some transportation needs for a certain amount of time. So, and we can always reach out to the Division of Services for the Blind to see if they could provide some additional guidance as well.
Great.
Beth, I'm going to go ahead, if you wouldn't mind, because of time here, go ahead and hand this back over to you. These all have been terrific ideas and suggestions that hopefully will help our audience provide better services. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Jonathan. And again, thank you so much to our presenters for joining us today. Really a continuation of just some great conversation. As we wrap up today, I really want to encourage those that participated today to take this information back, continue to find ways to incorporate this into your career center, into your day-to-day work as you are seeking opportunities to connect either employers with talent or those job seekers with jobs in your community. So again, great conversation. Thank you for your participation. Now join us for our final session, which is hard to believe, but next Thursday, we're going to talk about understanding the accommodation process. And so that will be again another rich conversation that will equip you with the information that you'll need to go back and really make an impact in your career center around understanding different various types of accommodations and how you can incorporate some of that into your day-to-day work. So again, thank you, Jonathan. And with that, have a great rest of your day.